All right,
Yeah,
so
we're
let's get
starting.
started. Hey guys, I'm Nico.
I'm TJ, although most people know me as Theodore.
Theodore. Yeah, we
I'm
can
an
explain
online
that in a
world.
couple episodes. We'll leave them to the current blogs at the moment. Yeah, we're just doing these videos to keep us accountable. Really explain what our process is, what we're dealing with right at this current moment, to really try to help anybody who's listening. If they're going through those current scenarios. What do you think, TJ
Yeah, and
or
just to give
Theodore?
some context, we're actually the purpose of these videos or these calls is so that we can actually be accountable to what we're working on separately. So I've got a couple websites. Nico's working on, I think, a website, although technically we have one together. And so in terms of what we're working on, we are hopefully growing these websites to produce passive income. Maybe some active income, but it's supposed to be a revenue stream for us in the future. That's that we can talk about that maybe a little bit. Maybe that's how we can jump right in. Is like, what's your goals with the website? What's my goals with the website? You want to dive into
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So I'll let you start to see what your current goals are, because I'm actually interested in what your goals are.
All right. So I've started a couple websites, and the first website that I started is doing like really well now. Next month it'll probably hit 500,000 page views a month, uh, which is a huge number in like the niche site world. But I've also grown some other websites, or I'm growing some other websites that are about things that I'm kind of interested in. And I realize my motivation for starting some of those is for the money side, like the passive income. Because I realized I run a couple other things like YouTube channels and courses and stuff, and I realized those are really active. So if I want to make more money that month, I have to like go out and make more videos or produce a new set of lessons or something like that. Through the website side of things, I've realized um, like I made I think it was like $5,000 or $6,000 this month on my main website, and I didn't really touch it. So that like fascinates me that the income is like passive and it's not really like I don't have to worry about it. I don't really have to do too much work to like keep it going. And so that has kind of motivated me to branch out from one website into a few other websites. But with that in mind, I've also like stuck with topics. So one of them is beekeeping that are really interesting to me. One of them is beekeeping. Another one is like just dog stuff. I actually have a Great Dane, and so I started writing articles about a Great Dane, like taking care of a Great Dane, and then it kind of just I bought another website and merged those two. We can get into that too. I feel like I'm rambling right now, but yeah, my motivations I would say probably 60% financial and 40% like hobby. Like I'm planning on starting another one here, a website here soon about hydroponics or gardening, and that's just because that's like really interesting me right now. So it's really easy to write about stuff that you're interested in. So in terms of motivation, I would say that mine's probably 60% like the financial side of like being able to make passive income, and 40% would be the like just fun to learn about. Like you get paid to learn about it. So that's kind of my motivations. What about yours?
Those are good motivations. Yeah, mine is the opposite of Theodore's. I had a YouTube channel a while back, like 4 years ago, that it actually just paid me $130 this month that I made 4 years ago, which is
Dang.
crazy, which is exciting because I was with Theodore when we were making these videos. Um, mine's the monetary thing's interesting to me, but I think my goals are more personal goals with sites. So I'm intrigued of like goal building, pushing yourself to write more, pushing yourself to hit those goals. Like I have one site that I'm working on right now. It's very actually it's let's call it an egg. Like it's not even grown yet. Like it's kicking a little bit for the
You've got
first
over
month, but it's
10,000 words
growing a
on it.
little bit. What's up?
You've got over 10,000 words on it. That's a decent size.
Yeah, we got 10,000. I have 10,000. I keep saying we. I have 10,000 words, and it's really the monetary thing will be fun once I get to that point. But right now, it's um, my motivations are how can I be better on the site? How can I create content that is um, helpful, exciting, and shows passion in some sort of way? So it's more internal goals at the moment than like monetary, which yours was definitely that as well at the beginning when you were first growing your site. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how your sites go compared to mine and how they go together as well.
Yeah, and I think another thing that may be like helpful to understand is that the topic that you're writing about is kind of like a process that you're going through. Right? I don't want to know if you want me to like leak the topic, but it's a process that you're
We can do it in
going
a
through.
couple episodes.
Yeah, you've went through this process and you've been like this kind of aggravating. There's so much to learn, and so in that process, you're wanting to help other people in that aspect too. Is that right?
Yeah. I've went through. I got in. Let's. I'll just say I got injured at work and I'm dealing with some stuff that I'm like, hey, um, I could better work on this in a different fashion and help some people. So that's the route I'm going. I can't tell exactly what it is. You can probably guess, but I'm not going to tell you just yet. Um, so yeah, just trying to help people. And that's really a big motivator. Is like when you start an article, just sit down and be like, hey, how can I help people? Like that's what's been motivating me, which we can talk about that in the future on how to push goals and like what moves you towards goals. And I think we're going to talk about that in this episode. We
Yeah,
can cut
so
that.
I guess we can go ahead and like move on into what are our goals for this week.
Oh, I forgot I have the document here. We can just go off that.
Yeah, we can go for it.
uh, yeah. So my current goals this week is to have all of my posts to 1,500. So a big thing for me has been consistency in writing, whether that be I write 1,500 words or I write 500. Like I just make sure I get a certain amount or any amount each day so that I'm always going, that there's not a day I haven't done anything. Because I've heard a quote from somewhere that like someone who shows up to the gym every day, whether they're motivated or not motivated, beats the person who shows up when they're just motivated. So it's like I've noticed a lot in the past of like not having that consistency and
Hmm.
like it not moving me forward. So it's like if I have the consistency, whether it be a lot one day or a little the next, it's always some sort of consistency. So it's just writing a 1,500 words, 500 words every day, just trying to get some post out. And this week's been trying to get more images, like custom images and interactive content for the articles. So that's the goals is a post a day and interactive content within the articles.
What do those images look like? Like, can you give me an idea? Are you drawing them? Or are you putting them together on Canva?
No, they're definitely just on Canva, and it's mainly because the content that I'm on right now, like visual photos, really don't do too well, and maybe some certain articles, but it's more like just writing Canva and just putting like say there's a step by step process, just listing that out in an image so that someone can just glance to it super quick compared to reading through it.
Yeah, that's been you mentioned that it's like kind of hard to come up with images. I've on the psychology website that I came up that I've been working on, that's the big I guess the topic of the big website that I have built is it was kind of difficult to like if you're talking about a psychological topic as long as it's not like a part of the brain or something, it is kind of difficult to come up with those images whether like if you're trying to put them together in Canva or even hiring someone to like design you custom illustrations, it still takes some work to come up with like a creative way to like explain to them what you want created. So yeah, that's really interesting that like you're wanting to set up that process to create more images. Um,
Yeah, and I think we talked the other day about if Google really penalizes you for using the same like core theme among it. So like you create this image that is a step-by-step process for one article and you're like, "Hey, I can use it for another article, just put the content that matters into that image now and toss out the other image." So, I've been interested to see if Google will rank both of those and it's more of just a preference for me, but it'd be weird going to Google and seeing all the same image just with different words. So
yeah,
that's something that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind just a little bit. Like, how can I change colors a tiny bit or change the way they look, like the structure of it? So we'll see how the week goes. I think we have another call next week. We're going to do weekly calls. Are we? Is that what we've committed to? Is weekly?
yeah, we can do
Like
weekly.
once? Yeah, weekly. So you'll be able to hear more on how that's going and how the process is going.
Yeah,
What about you?
when you asked me about that, I did a quick Google search. I was like, does Google? I think I don't remember what I typed in, but it was like, does Google count images as duplicate content? And the first two things that I looked at said no, and I was like, that's really interesting. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that comes up as like duplicate content or if it just ranks both. But in
Yeah.
terms of goals, I've got two main goals this week. The first one is I bought a domain that doesn't have any content on it, and I have another website that I want to move over to that domain. But to do that, I need to get approval from a Zoic, which is like a media network. Basically, you sign up with them and then they can pay you to put ads on your website. So the old website has Zoic on it, and the new website does not have. It's not approved for a Zoic yet, and I want to move it over. I've already applied, and I was denied because of uh, plagiarism. Was actually what they said. But I actually ordered a lot of these posts that are on the website from a content provider, which was Passion Posts. But the person that I've been talking to with Passion Post, they've done a great job, and like the communication between that, they've done a great job of trying to fix that. Now it's just like a pain in the neck to I have to go through and update all those posts because they've given me revisions of those articles. I just have to go through, like, that's probably the big thing I'm going to be doing this week is taking all of those
Oh,
revisions and then putting them back on and then reapplying to Ezoic and seeing if I get approved or not.
so they have gave you the revisions for them, like they went back and did. So when a Zoic contacted you, was like, "Hey, your website's fake. Sorry for the money you spent on it."
Yeah,
Did
yeah. So the,
Passion Post go back and like change, like, "Hey, this part is plagiarized potentially, like for some reason it says it's plagiarized," or like, "Let's just rewrite that for you."
Yeah, so the first thing I sent back to Ezoic was like, hey, this is probably going to look like duplicate content because there is another website out there that literally has this exact post. I'm just moving it over. Like, I own that other one. And they're like, yeah, that's okay, but this isn't really where we got the, like, where we found the plagiarism. Like, it's on the plagiarism on both of them. And I was like, oh man, that kind of stinks. I got to go through and find that. So, yeah, what they did is they ran it through a couple of their tools. I think Copyscape is one of them. Grammarly has a plagiarism checker, I think. And they just ran it through. Each time to make sure that like it passed most of them. And there also was a situation where they had the names of the writers that wrote certain articles, and so if I think they had like a strike system. If you get 3 strikes, you're no longer a writer at Passion Post. I'm not too familiar with this process, and I don't want to speak for them. But yeah, they gave me like all the names of the writers, and then that way I could see like if person A wrote this one and it was plagiarized, I could go through and like person A, he who wrote all these other articles, I could like take a look at them just so I know which articles were written by who. But they did a really good job of taking care of that for me, so I don't have any need to go through and do that. They pretty much did that for me. And they've
Oh,
sent back,
that's
they like
awesome.
have a folder of like it's like 20 or 30 articles that they thought were plagiarized that they I just have to go through and like upload them, which is going to be not as fun. Like it's easy to upload an article, but I also have to go through and like format it and probably put the images back in. So yeah, that's gonna take some time. And then the other thing I want to do is on all of the websites, I want to go through and check the page speed. So the main website, I recently did like a few different, like I removed some plugins, I added some stuff, and I was able to get above 90 page speed score on mobile. And that like I don't know if it's because the topic that I'm like psychology that I'm talking about is school oriented, but I saw a huge boost in traffic like in the last 2 weeks since I've done that. So I'm gonna try to do
It's
that for yeah, for the other websites as well, because some of them I've loaded in page speed and the score's like 30. So there's definitely some improvements there.
that's how my current site is. Not that I'm adding images and just messing around with design a tiny bit. It's like, oh, it went from 90 page speed to 86, and you're like, oh no, like,
Yeah,
oh,
if you get a big unoptimized image on there, it like I realized forget what it was called. I could probably look it up here real quick. Um, but I added a plugin that like automatically turns them into WebP and gets rid of all the um, you can
oh
like
yeah,
keep the same image, but it like the amount of data that it has to load is way less. And I did that and it like improved it a ton.
yeah. That's so now that you have these little goals, and how are you staying motivated towards those goals? Like, what's pushing you? Like, just because you have to do them, like that's gonna not gonna bring you income, or like, is there anything pushing you for those? Like, how are you keeping yourself accountable besides this call each week?
Yeah, so I guess I could say 2 things. Hopefully I don't forget the second one. But the first one is like I really like being able to see numbers. So if I can like on the Google search engine console, you can see like how many rank for or past the page speed thing, and you can see that number go up. So when I see it go from like 0 to 14, I'm like, "Oh, I did something right." Or 0 up to 500 and I have 600 posts, I'm like, "I wonder why those other 100 posts aren't like passing it." And so that really motivates me to like just see that I'm really oriented like in terms of seeing numbers go up, that like I'm really motivated by momentum, maybe the best way to put that. And the second thing I said, I hope I don't forget it, and I forgot it. So
Yeah, that's where we're kind of opposite. Is like, I'm not as motivated by numbers. Like, I'm motivated by like the inner type of the content, if that makes sense. So like, you see that page speed was increased by 30, so you're like, oh, how can I get 30 more? I'm like, yeah, I got myself to get it to 30, like how can I get it higher? So it's like something that's been motivating me a little bit is like, I think I talked about this at the beginning a little bit, is setting goals that are valuable to me. So like, I wrote 14 posts this last month. Like, that was a lot. Like, to me that felt like a lot. Like, those 14,000 words at this point. So it's like I know I'm at that point, and to keep me motivated is like having to reset another goal of like, hey, let me get to 20 instead of just like we've talked about this is just going on this train run of just writing and you're like an endless amount of writing because you can write as much as you want on your content. And like after 20 posts, you're like, time to write another post today. Time to write another post today. Like the fun goes away a tiny bit.
Yeah.
And like I feel like it's anybody who's like, yeah, I had fun writing 100 posts. Like, okay, let's not be a little dramatic here. There's something going on. So it's like setting goals. Like you do 10 articles, and you're like, okay, that felt good. Like I know I can do 10 articles. Let me set my goal for 20. Like what's really motivating me for 20 so that I can write those 20. But also setting the goal of like, how can I write those 20 where I'm not just like, okay, trying to get to 20, let's just pump out something quick. Because that the last like 4 days that's been rough for me. It's just like putting out content just to put it out, like that 500, like just a little bit, instead of like taking the time to sit down and saying, if someone's coming to this article, like what are they dealing with? What are they struggling with? Like how can I help them the best? How can I be in their shoes? And like writing that content.
No, that's a really good point
So
because I feel like the same way. Like I can relate to that in terms of the dog website. I ordered 80 articles, and it's like then it becomes kind of a job to just like download the Word file and then move it over, and you're like just get in the flow of like putting those up, and you don't really care too much about how the article looks or what the user experience is. Does that make sense?
yeah, that's what's like a big motivator for me this week is like keeping on track there and like um making sure the empathetic I think it's the empathetic side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's correct. Yeah. So our next topic is like small growths. Like, what has your two smallest pages? Because we're not going to talk about the largest one yet. What has your two smallest pages been doing? Like, how have they been? Like, how many articles are on them? How long have they been up? Like, how well are they doing at this point?
So the smallest page. So like on a specific
So,
website.
like your two sites, like the Honeybee and the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
You
how
go
have they been
first. You
doing?
go first, so I can see how to do this.
Yeah. So the one. So actually, Theodore and I have another website that we built together. And when we say that you do need to be somewhat passionate about what you write, we had learned firsthand that that is true. We have like, is it 20 articles on that site?
Should be
That
24.
24, and they are just sitting there. They're not growing hardly. Like we were like, okay, we do not actually enjoy this topic. So I went and started another site, and right now it's been posted for a month on Google Search Console, and there's 14 articles on it, so not a lot. I'm trying to get to 30 by um halfway through next month. I'm trying to do one a day now. Um, has 6 clicks, which one or two might have been Theodore and I, just looking at the search console. 136 impressions and an average page of 32. But for the first month with 14 articles, that's a small growth. I'll take that, especially.
Yeah,
And
that's
sorry,
10,000
keep
words,
going.
right?
Yeah.
Also,
We're
also
at
your momentum is really high because the last like week you've added a bunch. At least
yeah,
from what you've been telling me.
yeah. It's really been just trying to focus on keeping those goals and just being true to myself because I know if I can keep those goals to me, like I'm gonna keep that momentum. Like this last, I'll just bring this in. This last year, like a lot of people have had growth around me that have been consistent, whether I don't see them doing well or not well, and I haven't had that growth. And I'm like, okay, I need to stay consistent. So it's like wake up every morning going, what am I gonna do to push forward, even though if it's a little bit or a lot. So a lot of words are coming through. Yeah, we're at 11,833. So the goal is to get that to 30.
Yeah, that makes sense. That actually reminds me of a YouTube video I recently watched by Layla. I think it's Layla Hormozy,
Yeah.
and she was talking about how there was a part in her life where she worked like 16 or 18 hours a day, and all the people around her were looking at her saying like, "How are you doing that? Like that's an absurd amount of time to work, and you shouldn't be working." And she was explaining that to her. She did it for like a week or two, and then after that, that was the new normal. Like she just worked that much. If she worked less, like 12 hours a day, it felt like light work. And then if she worked more, obviously, like it started to drain her. And I thought that was really interesting that like how you're, what do they call that? The hedonic treadmill, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like you can reset your new normal. So it sounds kind of like that's what you're wanting to do, is to reset your new normal to like writing 1,000 words or 1,500 words a day.
Yeah, and I've used that to describe it to a bunch of people, like in so many different facets of life. Like you set your goal here. So like my goal is 1,500 words. Like one day I might write 3,000 words. And I'm like, this has been a great day. Then the next day I write like 200 and I'm like, crap. But then I write 2,000. I'm like, okay, this is great. As long as my medium's there, like I'm not decreasing my goal that's going down because I'm riding with the wave. It's like we will get there as long as you keep your median. Like, and after a while, it'll start getting shorter together. That's just the normal. Like, you don't have like it's easy to pump out 1,500 words.
Yeah, and that's kind of going back to like the tea thing. We that we weren't too excited about it. I've realized the stuff that I am excited about, and maybe that's like back in the beginning I said I'm starting in like things I'm interested in and curious about and like hobbies. Is because it is so much easier just to like word vomit whatever you've learned. Like it's really easy to pump out 2,000 words on a topic if, like in the past 2 days, you've been learning about it and you've asked those questions on Google. I found that to be true in any niche. Like as long as you're interested in it and you like writing about it, the writing about it becomes much easier.
Yeah, and being empathetic. Like, we can jump over to the next topic in a
Hmm.
moment. Something that's also helped. This is probably this podcast is probably just a whole bunch of just everywhere. So we'll get better, guys, at
Yeah, you got to
keeping
start
it
somewhere.
structured and keeping it structured in some sort of way. But like something that's been very beneficial to me is I haven't gone through some of the things I'm writing, and that can be hard to write about in a way that you care and you're empathetic to the person and that you um, want to help them. So like something that's been beneficial to me is going to Reddit and like looking at tons of people commenting and like posting like their problems about this specific search query or whatever you want to call it, and like understand like what pain are they going through. Like you can see when they're typing like they're struggling with this, or and then taking all those and like really thinking about it and being like I want to help this person, and then putting that onto the page and being like how can, if they were to look up this again, would I be able to help them?
Yeah, that sounds like a really good way to like connect with whoever is going to be reading your article. I've also found Reddit to be a really good source of like if you're at 1,500 words and you need to get or you want to get to 1,800, and you're like you've came up with everything that you could about the topic and examples and stories and like alternatives to whatever you're talking about. If you want another like 300 words real quick, you can just go to Reddit, like type in site reddit.com and then type in whatever your keyword is, and like the first 10 things that pop up, you can just share those stories. I would definitely cite them, but it's really easy to just like get new ideas off of Reddit users.
That's what I've done that a lot, is like if I don't have that personal experience, because I've heard that Google loves you having like personal experiences in your articles of like you actually dealing with that problem.
Yeah,
Is
that's a
like
new
using
update
their
lately.
story. Yeah, it's like actually using their stories and being like, hey, X dealt with this, and this is how it came into conclusion. Like in those different scenarios.
I realize from the user standpoint, sometimes if I have a problem, that's what I'll do is I'll look up the problem and I'll see 10 articles and maybe I don't really resonate with them. And then I'll type in the same problem and put the word Reddit after it, and then read through those, and those are helpful. And it's like if a website could save me that time and do that like research on Reddit for me and then just put it on a website, it would be helpful for me. So sometimes that's what I do for the articles that I create.
Yeah, and something that's been big for me this week is really thinking about why someone comes to a website. And like in my niche, someone comes to a website because they want to know that they've been heard. They want to know that how can you help their very specific situation, which is hard to do because it's specific. Like you give a lot of generalized tips and consultation. So it's like, how can I set my site up to be able to help them in a specific manner so they don't have to go to Reddit? Like why is Reddit good? Because you post your question and you get an answer to your question. So it's like trying to list everything possible you can think of, or without like just tossing tons of words on there. But also, I've been thinking about like a little message bar on the side to like get little bits of quick help, so they spend more time on the site. but they also get the help they want, so they can come back and be like, "Hey, I have another question," because that's more time on your page. And then Google's like, "Oh wow, people are spending a lot of time on here. Why is this so good?"
Yeah, that's a great example. Another one is like if I were to do the hydroponics website, like I've got some basil over there, and some of the leaves are turning a little yellow. So I made a post on Reddit like, "Hey, do these look yellow to you, or is it supposed to be this color?" And a bunch of people commented. And then after that, I realized there were like once a month someone posts something like that. So it'd be really easy to make an article, share my experience, and then very similar to like just kind of be a curator of grabbing that content and pointing people to it. Like so that they don't necessarily have to do that research themselves. They can see, there's 10 other people that asked the same question, and then here's 100 different answers that people gave to that question.
Or even so, like mentioned that chat bar. If like, say you go down to the chat bar with we'll use your basil example, and he's like, "Hey, like we need to figure out how to get people to use the little chat things in the bottom because I think they're so spammy right now. If you can readjust someone's mindset to like, hey, this is your one central spot for help. Like, click it and ask. Like,
Yeah,
no collecting your email. Just like click it and ask.
they've
Like,
definitely been.
and say
Yeah, go ahead.
and say you go to hydroponics and you're like, hey, my basil's rough, and you get contacted with Theodore, and Theodore's like, hey, this is what I went through. I know you've read my article, but this is what I went through. Read these 5 articles I wrote about potential things that you need to look out for now. Like, be as helpful even in that. Like, instead of a website, you go to it, you read it, and you're like, yeah, okay, my answer was question. Like, how can you create that partnership, not partnership, but that connection in a way that like the website's also like super helpful in a way that you're like person to person instead of just person to website.
Yeah, I think the chat bar is a good step in that direction, but I will say I think in terms of marketing, that chat bar has been abused by quite a few marketers in terms of it being automated, or whenever you sign up, whenever you ask a question, you also have to do an email, and then after the interaction, they send you like promotional material. I think another step is like adding comments. That's probably something I could add to my psychology website. Is I don't think I have comments enabled, and that would be something that like I could. Obviously, the reason I turned them off was because spam was so bad. I'd get like 500 comments a day, and it's hard to tell through those which ones are true. I'm sure there's a plugin. I just haven't done it yet. But yeah, that sounds like maybe something I could do this week or next. Just find a spam avoiding comment plugin and enable that, and just see how many like true comments come through.
Yeah, I wonder if you get to the point where like you could hire like 2 virtual assistants that like studied all your content, and then like one on one side of the world, one on the other side, where they work. I wouldn't
12
say
different
12-hour
hours.
shifts or 10 hours, but like they're both covering, so there's always someone there to help and like answer your question. Like I think that'd be very valuable because I was wanting to put a forum on my site, but I was like, not that many people use forums. They just go to Reddit, and I'm like, how can I keep people on my site and want to use it? So that's been a big thing this week. But I don't want that to relay into our goals. I don't want those things to distract from like what's actually growing our sites, and that's content. So like I have an issue of like focusing on like, oh, a chat bar would be cool. Let me spend 10 hours looking up how to do chat bars. And I'm like, crap, I should have wrote another 1,500, like distracting from things that are actually going to grow the site.
Yeah,
So that's what's going to help.
that's actually something I wanted to talk about in terms of I guess moving forward is like the psychology website has 566 articles. And I feel like I could probably do a couple hundred more before I like really start running out of ideas, and I've got to do like really niche topics that are smaller competition or smaller volume. And I feel like that may be like the next step. Is so I'm at in terms of like my goals or what I'm doing, I'm gonna like max out the keywords, and then I want to max out the content, which would mean like going back through the content, making sure it has 1,500 or 1,800 words on the topic, and then adding images. And then after that, then doing like offsite stuff, which would be like backlinks, which we can talk about. We can save that for another talk if you want.
That's yeah, we could do that another one.
Do you feel
What
like
is
on your topic, do you feel like it would be the same way to where you like max out the keywords and then you go back through and max out the content so the content is the best and then do offsite stuff? Because I feel like, I could pick 10 articles or I could do 500 articles and make them the best, but I feel like in this second section where like you go back through and you like make sure it's 1,800 words, 2,000 words, and you add images and stuff, if you do the first step first, you can see like, oh, this keyword really isn't getting that much traffic. My time is better spent on this other keyword that I didn't even think would do well, but it's got 2,000 page views a month. Do you think that's a good route? Is that something you're going to try to do?
Yeah, that's actually what I'm doing right now. Is just because I'm gonna be honest, a couple of my articles don't even have images on them right now. It's just I just got them out and just put them up and see how Google's, because I've heard the first 3 months you just want as much content and as much good content as you can, just so Google starts seeing that you're an authority of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just tossing out articles, that just writing them and writing them and writing them, and then going back and be like, this one's hitting. Let me add words to this. Let me add better images. Let me add stories. Let me add connections, whatever it might be, to make it the most valuable content. And yeah, just pushing through that, just what you're doing, then go back and then be like, hey, I want to do backlinks, I want to do outreach. We had a conversation outside of this about some better ways to might try to do backlinks, which we can talk about in another episode. Yeah, so just go back, re-edit them. Yeah, that's a good route. That's exactly what my mind has been thinking this whole week, so we connected well on that.
Yeah, the word that's coming to mind, I don't know if someone else coined this or this is even what it means, but it's like the shotgun method, where you just like try
Was
to hit
that
a whole
income
bunch of.
school?
It might be.
Those heathens.
It might be that you basically get a whole bunch of topics and then see which ones stick, and then double down on those that do well. And that's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
doing with probably all the sites.
And something we talked about off video is we're going to spend an hour each week. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can just be we don't have big sites. What we're actually looking at is just looking at each other's content and being like, hey, think of this image, think of this graph, like having an outside opinion to come in and bring, like, you can try something different here. Like, I look at my articles sometimes and I'm like, I don't know what else to put here. I am like, my mind is mush on this topic right now. Having someone who's not even a part of it come and be like, this would be helpful to me. This would be helpful. So that's
Yeah.
something we're going to try to keep us pushing forward too.
Yeah, just as a note on that, one of my best performing articles, actually quite a few of them, that do well. I wouldn't say do well because of the content. They do well because they have a specific tool on the web page. That's a plugin that I've had like custom. I had a developer create it, and it's like, I could have just posted an article, but by putting that tool on there, it really bumped it up in the search. Like, it's a super high competition and high volume keyword, and I'm ranking for it. And I think it's because of that tool that I put on there. And I would never have like put on that if I was just put it on there if I was just focusing on word count and images. So yeah, that's like, if I can go over to your website and be like, hey, have you thought about this, or what about this? That sounds like a great, like, clever way to come up with those like new ideas that you wouldn't think about if you're just in the flow of writing.
Yeah. So we talked about, I'm looking through our checklist on this page of what we've hit. We've talked about mobile scores. We've talked about small growth, setting goals, consistency. Paying versus writing. So I have a wedding coming up, so I've not been paying for articles, though I would love to. So I've been writing all my articles. TJ here, have you been writing, or have you been paying?
I have not been writing much. In fact, this last week, I think the only thing I wrote was a script for a video on a YouTube channel. I think it was 2,000 words, so it was a decent amount. But it wasn't even meant for a website. It was meant for a YouTube channel. I mean, for that specific project, I do put those scripts as blog articles, but historically, there's like 150 posts, and they're not ranking. They do a lot better as YouTube videos. So yeah, I haven't really been writing for the blog, like content creation. But when it comes to paying versus writing, like the past, like so far in 2022, I've definitely spent a decent amount of money on paying articles, paying for articles, and I would be interested if I could go back through like at the end of the year and see how much like the return on those articles is, specifically the ones that I have bought so far this year. And maybe that's something I could do like in future episodes is, or actually, well, we've talked about an income report before, right? We can do an
Yeah.
income report, maybe like once a month or something like that.
Have you thought about? We're in the 8th month now. Man, if we were in the 6th month, you could have cut off. This might be a good thing for next year potentially too. Is you spend 6 months hiring articles, and you spend 6 months writing articles, and see which ones are performing better. Of course, you never know. Like, you can't put them T to T, but have a general idea of like, I spent time on this article. Like, the ones I've written do better than the ones I've bought. So like,
Yeah,
where's the trade off there?
I come up with those like little mental like little experiments all the time. I wish like even with the hydroponic one, it's like I could spend all my time writing hydroponic articles, and then I could also set aside a budget for just someone else to like pay someone to write, and then see which ones do better. Obviously, like the one that I would create would have like custom images and stuff. That would be a really interesting test, but yeah, that would be like double the effort. I guess in the end, I could like merge them together and have some super website, but
Do you find yourself more connected to the content if you pay for it or do you write it? So like if
oh
I'm writing, like I feel more connected to the site and I'm like, I want this to be better. I want better images. Like I feel like it's my ego on the line, like versus just paying, being like, yep, someone wrote it.
yeah, definitely. I feel a lot more connected when I write it, and that's like and like the dog website where I ordered 80 articles. It's like I didn't even read those. I just copying and pasting them and putting them up. They could have had like incorrect information, and I feel bad for that. So it's like I probably should go back through and add in custom images if I can, and like proofread it. I'm trusting that content provider to provide me with good content, but like I mentioned earlier, that they definitely had the plagiarism issue that they dealt with. So yeah, the stuff that I write, I definitely take a lot more pride in, and like making sure that it's like helpful to someone. So, yeah,
Speaking of, actually, I just thought of a good article for Double Comma Dreams. We could do a Mediavine versus a Zoic review since you're on both
yeah, that would be
and
interesting.
talk about
I
both and write
I
it.
really want to put actually now that I've read some of the things on Twitter, I kind of want to put the psychology blog on Ezoic just to see. But I think it would break my contract, or Mediavine would definitely get upset at me if I tried that. But
Tell me you want higher rates.
higher, the way that Mediavine works is the more the more page views you get, they give you a higher percentage of what they get.
Oh
So
wow.
just start, you get like
Some
75%, I think, and then you slowly go up to like 85 or 95, I think. Maybe it's just 90,
I,
but
I know something we talked about, and this podcast is everywhere, but I think it might be beneficial to somebody, so we'll just keep chatting. Um,
yeah.
Something else we've talked about was so you look at similar blogs and like your niche and you see them doing 20, 30 times what you're doing and you're like, what the hell is happening here? Like, what am I not doing that they're doing? So that's something we've been talking about a lot this last couple weeks is like, how do you take what we're doing and then moving it to the next height? Of course, mine's not at this point, but of course I have those general ideas of like, first I'm going to start off with ad revenue. And then after I hit enough page views, like, is it better to move away? Like, maybe have an ad revenue, but then move on to like your own services and like your own type of because like take Healthline for instance. I think they do their own ad network themselves. Like they sell ads themselves. So they like instead of someone taking that cut, like they take 100% of it. Like what goals are there for you moving on? Like, are you happy where you're at? Are you wanting to push forward? Like what's your
Yeah,
where
so
you're currently at?
specifically in terms of like monetization methods,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Like what's that look
obviously
like?
display ads, obviously I'll probably keep those on. When I first turned display ads and I bumped you, how many ads would you like? And you bump it up to like the max. I was like, people are gonna like send me emails and they're gonna be upset and the time on page is gonna be reduced. But what I found, and there's actually I researched this also when I was going through it. People when there are ads on the website, they actually trust it more because of the ads. Like if you don't have ads, they're like, oh, it's not a big enough website to not have ads. The just having ads on your website makes it more trustable, which blew me away.
Hmm.
Like I would have never have expected that. But yeah, obviously display ads are a good way to monetize. Affiliate links. I got on a call with someone who recommended me to come up with affiliate links, but the like niche that I'm in, like psychology, it's kind of difficult to do that. I think a better route would be to make a product myself and sell it. Would be like a general psychology course, or like social psychology, or like personality psychology, and make mini lessons and then sell that. I think that would do a lot better. But I haven't tried that. And even on there is one page that is specifically like based around dating, and I've created a dating course. I know. But the
I'm not laughing at that kid. I'm not laughing at your Dane curse. I'm looking at you in the hat, and the more I'm like focusing on that,
it's great, isn't it?
keep going. Sorry.
But the one specific article that has to do with dating receives like 30 or 40,000 page views a month, and the conversion rate of the people that get to the end of the article and click on the product and buy is very low. Like it's like once every 3 months someone does that, and that's like what 120, well 30, well I think it's like 40 times 3 months is 120,000 page views. So it's a very low conversion rate. Maybe I could do some things myself to improve that, but It's definitely not doesn't seem easy. So the ad display ads seems to be, I wouldn't say easier, but it's less work on your part to just create the content and then put the ads up, if that makes sense.
Have you thought about? I've been to a couple sites and I actually click off of them because I don't really want to buy it. But they're pay blocked. It's like you can see the first 200 words, and it's like you either need to log in or you need to buy a subscription. Have you thought about? That'd be interesting to test on a site, like see how many people bounce off of it. Because you see, like Wall Street Journal, or like I guess it's more mainstream media.
Yeah, I haven't done that, and I probably won't because it's a personal thing. I really hate those websites, especially ones that get shared, and then you go to it and you're like, oh, I've read the headline, now I want to like actually read the article. Then you've got to join a club or something to get
There's
access to
been
that.
one. There's been one site I signed up on it because I was like, I really want to read this article, and then
Dang, they
I didn't go
gotcha.
back to it again.
They gotcha.
It did get me.
But yeah, I feel like in terms of other ways of monetizing, in the psychology and like the school aspect, one thing I've realized that a couple other competitors have done, and I don't know if there's a network for this, but you see this little thing that pops up and it's like, find your school. What degree do you want? What state are you in? And then click go. And when you click go, it takes you to like a sponsored search thing or whatever. And there it says sponsored, so they're definitely getting paid for that. I haven't looked into how to set that up or even what the like ad rates of that are. Would it be like a 5% boost, or would it be like a 30% boost of the current income? That would definitely be something I could probably look into.
Yeah. So we're kind of veering away from our core topic of just being consistent in the beginning. So we'll jump back into that a little bit. We
Hmm.
ramble sometimes.
I do.
We gotta be better,
I've got
but
a bunch of ideas.
we can share those in more videos. So just staying, because this video is really just targeting people who are having trouble staying focused and having trouble staying motivated and just being happy with your site. So like staying consistent and just let's go back and hit on those core topics just real quick. It's like if you're having trouble, like just try to reevaluate your goals, reevaluate why you're doing it. And like if you're doing it just for money, that's okay. Like it's good to be honest about that. Like you can set motivations around that. But just go back if you're struggling with that, figure out your motivations, figure out your goals. So for me this week, my goal is like, hey, I've written these articles, I'm struggling now. What goal can I set to get me to the next one? And the next one is like 14, like I mean 30. Like now I have another goal, like and then figure out why those goals are important to you. So why is
Yeah.
30 important to me? Because I know from 14 to 30, like there's gonna be more growth in the website.
Yeah, and I think that that actually kind of clicked with me now because it's like I hit 1 million words on the psychology blog, and I know for you that like that's what motivates you. You'd be like, "Holy cow, 1 million words!" But for me, that's definitely not like I'll be excited when I hit a 5-figure month with adding like that. That excites me. So I think that's maybe something in terms of consistency. Like if you find out what motivates you and are true about it, like there's a lot of people that would say, don't do it for the money, do it for helping the people that are reading. And I just had to like when I was honest with myself and was like, if I can like double my income, or if I can feel some form of relief that I don't have to like get a side job or something like that, that motivates me. And I feel like with you, it's the same way. Just the motivation is different. It's like you want to see yourself growing. You want to see that momentum in yourself. Is that did I hit the nail on the head,
Yeah,
or is that similar?
that that's definitely it. And I would like to say I have the ability to think about the future and like what I want to do with the site and like having you as my friend, like thinking about where you're at and like, oh, if I was in his position, what would I do differently? Or like what thoughts would I have? Like creative thoughts of um like you said your goal is like once you hit 1 million words, you're like 1,000,005 seems real big. So like something more tangible, like another 2 grand is a little bit more tangible and like a better goal in a sense. Cause you're like, I can see the like that seems I don't know if it seems easier, but in my mind, like it would feel easier. Also like setting goals of like my future goals like to build this site, but to like have people like because you have a team of a couple people, right?
Hmm.
Like how many? Like two or three?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I've got some people that do multiple things, but yeah, I've got like a
Yeah.
thumbnail artist who can also make art. I there for a while I had like just an artist, an illustrator that I paid monthly, and they just produced images for each like article. They would pick a couple and make an image. I've got like two, maybe three like long-term writers that I've hired for more than a year, and they've. I didn't realize how I gave one of those writers one of the just a job, and they like knew what I wanted so well, I didn't have to like give any advice. I was just like, hey, can you write on this topic? So that was really interesting. But yeah, back to consistency. Um, I'm really consistent at paying writers. I need to get better, more consistent at writing. Um, there was something I
Is
wrote
the
down that I wanted to talk about in terms of being consistent. One thing that I realized, you might be able to like double down on this too and like maybe explain it, but if I'm like looking at a blank page, it's really hard for me to come up with stuff to write about. I find it a lot easier to write. I've got two little tricks that I can like share. One of them is if you make an outline. So if you're like, here's the intro, here's what I'm gonna talk about here, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the outro, and then you just kind of start filling those in. It's a lot easier than just looking at a blank page and coming up with like how you're gonna start the article. And another one is I've actually done this for video topics where sometimes it's easier to write a topic if there's already 200 words written, and it's not that expensive to pay someone to write 200 words on a topic. So you can just pay someone to write 200 or 300 words on a topic, and then you can go in, edit what they're talking about, and then add on. And it's like for me, once I start editing, like once I start, continuing to go is not a problem at all. But sometimes just looking at a blank page, or even if the blank like Word doc isn't pulled up, I'm like, oh, I don't want to open it up and do it. But if someone sends me a doc and there's already a couple hundred words on there, it's much easier for me to go through and edit those. The same way as if I like come up with an outline. If there's already an outline, I can go in and like add my own thoughts and stories and examples and stuff. Do you feel the same way? Like if you have some, is it easier for you to edit something to add words to an outline?
I'm I'm totally the opposite of that. Like, if I see a script that already has stuff in it, I don't feel connected to it. So I'm like, I don't understand it already. Like, even if I read it, I'm like, that's not how I'm thinking. So like, I have to start it all myself and be like, then have people add to it, and then I get frustrated because they're not adding what I want, and that's a process of me not explaining how it is or having ideas that aren't
I'm
correlated.
actually that way, but with the 200 or 300. So I'll order 200 or 300 words, and then I'll be like, "They're definitely wrong here," and then explain like fix it. So that's really
Yeah.
interesting that we're like different on that, but kind of the same.
I'd be interested to see how it is once the site's bigger and like how I'm feeling after writing more. I will say, if you're having trouble writing, think of it in a term of like, and this is more like at the beginning of your blog, like at 14 articles, if you're like, "Oh, I don't understand why I need to write more and more and more." Like, now that I've written these articles, and I've written plenty of articles in the past, like it's not like these are my first 14 ever. Like, now that I know the structure of the articles and how I like it, like I feel like I could go to a writer and be like, "Hey, write it just like this. Like this exact framework, do this." And like if they send it to me, I know how to critique. I'd be like, "Add a story here, add examples here," because I've done in these articles now that I can be like, I feel like I can hire it instead of just being like, I'm gonna hire 50 articles. I don't know what they should be. I'm just gonna hire them. 'Cause I feel like so many people start a niche site and they're like, I don't have time to write. I'm just gonna hire them and put them on and see how they do. And like, I don't know what to change on them. Like having that experience in writing in the beginning, like helps you. And that's what's been motivating too for me is like having experience to be able to help to train someone on how to do it in the future. Because I would love to have a team of writers and like just have a team like behind the website.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like by writing yourself, you're giving yourself the confidence to be able to tell someone else, "Hey, this is right. This is wrong. You should add this here.
Yeah,
This helps." Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So
So the consistency
yeah,
helps with confidence.
yeah. That has been helpful.
I feel like it also
But
helps, obviously, with rankings. But I do want to mention a study that I read. This was probably like a year ago, and they were testing with aged. It was like, does it matter if you have? I guess what I'll say is what they did is they tested and they bought like 200 word or 200 articles for a website, and they posted them, and then like instantly it started ranking. So whereas a lot of people have this idea that there's the Google sandbox, that it takes a year before you
yeah,
start ranking. And what they did is they were trying to disprove that there is no such thing as a Google sandbox. That what really matters, if you have a website and there's 5 articles, Google's not going to be like, that's a great. we're going to show it number one. But if you have 200 articles and they're interlinking and a bunch of custom images, like in the contents there, then it doesn't really care how long the website's been up, as long as it's not duplicate content or anything. It still looks like a huge website that someone's put a bunch of effort into. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know how true that would be. I definitely think there is still some form of a time period that Google waits to see, like, they're great content and then they switch it up and put scammy stuff on there. So that's interesting to me.
I don't know, TJ. I'm a month on Search Console right now, and I have a first page article, and I have
Yeah.
14 posts.
That's what surprised me. I was like, I don't know if the keyword difficulty is really low or what it is.
It is very low.
Because I have the beekeeping one has like 100 articles now, and it's doing 100 impressions a day. So and it probably gets a click every other 2 or 3 days. So that's like really surprising how easily you're able to like rank in Google. They must love that domain and the content that you're creating.
Yeah, because the competition is not high at all, and I'm about to see if it's actually, because it's the hard thing is like if the competition's not that high, like am I doing something worthwhile? And then I'm like, okay, this having this area then branching out to another will be beneficial. So it's like, there was a guy on YouTube. He was doing financial topics. We talked about this in the past. He couldn't hit all the big topics, so he went all the really small keywords all around it and grew
Who is
his
that?
channel. You know who I'm talking about, I believe. I don't know. I don't forgot his name.
It sounds familiar. Like
Yeah.
all
So
the
he did all these small topics and then gained his authority around there, and then started tackling the big ones, and then was able to hit them instead of just like tackling all the big ones. So I'm like, I'm going for all keywords under 20 difficulty, like hitting every single one, and then they're ranking.
yeah,
Google's loving it, so I'm just gonna keep hitting them.
I know another struggle is like if someone comes to your website and they click off really quick, Google doesn't have much data on your website, and if that's the data they have, that someone gets there and then leaves really quick, it's like it kind of telling Google, hey, this website is not what you were looking for. But if you get one click and someone stays there for 5 minutes and then clicks around to a couple of their pages, and like that's the first one, Google's gonna be like, oh, show them something else. See if they like show someone else, like rank them higher next time, and see how it turns out if it's this same way or if it was just a like a glitch that someone did. So that's really something I like that idea that you bring that up.
Yeah, and I'm trying not to. Though I like looking at the Search Console, and I'm like, yeah, I got 12
Yeah.
impressions today. Woo! It's more like I'm gonna wait a couple months to really start like let these articles sit and figure out where Google wants them, and be like, okay. But I do want a baseline. I think you should have a baseline of at least 1,000, 1,500. Like have that baseline, and then go back and be like, okay, what can I improve? Google's liking this more. And then a couple months, like 3 months, 4 months from now, go back, be like, okay, this article's not performing. But it should be like there's not really a lot of competition in front of it. What can I do to like really enhance this article? Like give every article a little bit of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that's like that second thing that I mentioned is like once the article's up and it's ranking for a little while, you can actually go into Google Search Console and see what keywords people are searching for to find that article, and then you can like embed it into the article more to make it more helpful. And same with images
guys,
and videos.
I'm gonna be honest. I have a post right now that has 300 words and it's ranking on the 3rd page.
That's
So
crazy.
don't let anything demotivate you. Just keep going.
That's crazy.
Find those keywords.
Just out of curiosity, how did you find that keyword? Is it something that you had a problem with yourself that you're like, there nobody is answering this well, or was it from the Ahrefs list I gave you?
It was from Ahrefs. I
Really?
just typed in the query and I was like,
That's
organized it by the lowest difficulty and just have been going top down.
that's actually how I plan to start the hydroponics website is
Yeah.
to find another hydroponics or gardening website and then just sort by like if their difficulty is under 10, just sort by the highest volume and then just start churning those out.
And the nice thing about my niche is like the content is dry as hell. So like I'm just adding flavor.
Yeah,
Spices on spices, and Google's
story
loving it.
stories really help with that, right?
Yeah, because they're just like, if this is right, do this, 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 this. And I'm like, well, I did this. This is what happened. I've also been close to someone who did this. This is what happened. This is what you can do to look for this. Like, really just think of everything they might be thinking. And something hasn't actually proven to be any beneficial yet, but I'm hoping that it might work, is at the bottom of every article, at a revision, I added a little tab that says, revision request, and like it links to a contact page that you can submit a revision. Like if there's something on, and you're like, hey, this actually isn't correct. You're kind of wrong. Like to have to incorporate the people reading into it a little bit. I hope that it will prove successful, but I don't know.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping that if someone reads in, they're like, this actually isn't that right. Let me
you should
help this guy and put in a request.
you should in that little request thing. You should also be like, or do you have a story to share? That
Yeah,
would be really
people
interesting to
love
see what
talking about
stories.
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. I'm gonna add that after this. Let me write that
I
down.
know I've already got some ideas.
This isn't beneficial for people listening. It's beneficial for us. So, but it's
What's
been keep
we're
going.
at like 55 minutes now, so we can do like one more topic and then kind of wrap it up. Does that sound good?
I was just gonna say wrap it up. I'm thirsty. So
All right. So the main idea of this, I didn't realize this until halfway through the show, but the core goal of this video was about consistency, which is probably why I rambled on all kinds of like different things until halfway. Um, but yeah, I feel like I want to set a goal of like by this time the next like I don't know whether to call this a show or the next like
call it the show.
the next show we hop on, I want to have
Sounds
like a
good.
certain. Should I commit to like doing 7 articles on the hydroponic, uh, and doing like 1,000 words each, just so that the next time I have something that I can say that I did? You think that's a good
Let's
idea?
do 1,000 words each one, and then do a. Let me look at the AH just real quick. I'm interested in the Ahrefs. Hydroponics, you said. I know people say not to look at Ahrefs like
Yeah.
all that, but
The interesting thing is like the main keyword hydroponics isn't too much, but like if you're like you take any gardening thing and then you add hydroponics to the end of it, like my leaves are turning brown, basil, hydroponic, and then a lot more people. It's like that would be a great topic. I'm looking over there at my actual hydroponic plants. I need to. I've definitely killed quite a few, so I've got some stories I can share about what not to do.
60,000 key. There you go. Oh yeah, like here's one like Oh, just kidding. These are all commercial. Yeah, this
Look
one
up.
has a keyword difficulty of 1, and it supposedly gets a volume of 40 a month. Oh,
There
I
was
think that's
one.
a brand.
There was one that I found that was really good. I'll just say it. It was what kind of rocks can you find in your backyard? I don't know if that was the exact one, but it was like 1,000. It was like 1,000 searches a month, and then like the page that ranked for it got like 4,000 because it ranked for a bunch of like other keywords or whatever. And I was like, dang. So
Something I want to talk about in another show is pillar content. That's something I'm going to be thinking about. We can talk about pillar content. We can talk about how we're doing keywords. Are you writing these down?
yeah, backlinks.
Oh, um, how we're doing um no, how we're doing authentic content for us, so like images. So what I was saying, back to your goals, is you should do 1,000 words each, and then you should also take photos of each. Like do 3 photos.
I'll
3.
try to do that. I may have to use some like you mentioned deposit photos. Some of these like I've only got 2 basil plants and they're not dying yet, so I can't be like, why are the leaves turning yellow? I could probably Photoshop it, but I don't know if that'd be the best.
No, you actually that's the yeah, that's interesting. What if you went out, could you go out and buy like quickly, like for what you're writing,
Purposely,
buy like those plants?
yeah, and like purposely keep the roots like out of the water so that like something happens and then be like, oh, this is because there's no water in your roots.
You could do that on one of the articles. Is like, if it's dying, be like, this is what it looks like if it's been out of water. Like,
That's a
this is
pretty
the
good
part
idea.
where Google becomes hard, because like the content Google really wants is the content that takes a lot of effort, and you're like, dang it. Like that's something, just another tiny, that's something I've been, it's like, man, if I want these articles to rank, I really got to put in effort on them. Like it's easy just to come and sit down and just be like, "Brr," and like you're like, man, but that extra 10% that's in here, how do I pull that out to put that into the article?
Yeah, I
So
think Income Score. I got one thing I got from one of their videos is like they would always do some one real world thing action to their articles. So like one of them was like I can't even remember the topic, but they had to call 15 different people, and then they like got quotes, like how much it costs to landscape or whatever, and then they made a table of like, these are the 15 people we called, this is how, if they answered or not, and then here's how much they asked for this specific service. And I was like, that's a great idea. Now, if I could just put that from like the whatever niche they were in into like psychology niche or the beekeeping niche or whatever, I really like that idea of taking like one actual action that you actually have to do instead of just looking up other websites or referencing them to come up with like unique content.
Yeah. I wish people viewing sometimes weren't going to steal our content. Maybe we might put our websites out there because it'd be fun to show them what we do each week.
No, that was I was
We'll
reading
think
that's
on that.
the Twitter thing I was mentioning like before this call. Someone said never. They're like, oh, I've never wondered why people don't share their URLs until I became like an influencer and then shared my URL and a bunch of bad stuff happened. And then they like share, on Twitter, it's like read the comments below, and then you can like do a tweet thread. They shared like all the bad stuff that had happened. So I wish I could find that tweet. I'd share it on the next episode.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
We're at an hour now. How are we going to end these? Are we going to do with something like just be like, hey, all right, we're at the end of these, bye? Or are we going to be like, wrapping it up, don't forget to be consistent?
We're out.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the call.